The day I found out my father had taken the entire $175,000 from my college fund and given it to my younger brother, my world collapsed. For years, I had believed that money was proof of my family's faith and hope in me. I studied hard, lived frugally, avoided parties and distractions, everything just so that one day I could step onto a university campus and change my future. Yet, in a single evening, all those dreams shattered. My father coldly told me that my brother needed the money more, and that I should learn a practical trade instead. That simple sentence felt like a knife driven deep into my heart. I stood there in shock, unable to believe that the man I had always respected could make such a cruel decision. I tried to explain how hard I had worked, how much I had sacrificed, but he wouldn't listen. In his eyes, I was only the backup plan. My brother was the family's real hope. My mother said nothing. She didn't defend me, didn't argue, she just lowered her head and avoided my gaze. That silence hurt even more than any harsh words could have. That night, I lay awake for hours, my mind spinning with countless questions. Why did none of my efforts seem to matter? How could love within a family become so unbalanced? I felt betrayed, abandoned, and completely alone. Yet in that moment of despair, a new thought slowly took shape. If they didn't believe in me, then I would believe in myself. Even though the road ahead looked uncertain, I knew I couldn't give up. I had to stand up, find a way to rewrite my life, and prove that a person's worth cannot be defined by money or favoritism. After making that decision, I began to see more clearly the bias that had existed in my family for years, something I had always tried to ignore. All the attention, expectations, and financial support were poured into my brother. From choosing schools and buying books to hiring tutors and arranging career orientation trips, my parents prepared everything carefully for him. Meanwhile, all I ever received were empty pieces of advice like, try to take care of yourself, or don't compare yourself to your brother. Whenever I needed help, the answer was usually silence or a casual, dismissive shake of the head. Family dinners gradually became heavy and uncomfortable. The conversations revolved around my brother's achievements, dreams, and future plans, while I sat quietly at the table like a fading shadow. Whenever I tried to share my own thoughts or plans, my father would cut me off, saying I was unrealistic and impractical. That constant dismissal slowly took away my voice in my own home. I was no longer an important part of the family, just someone lingering in the background, present but insignificant. The breaking point came when my father openly declared that investing in my brother was the smartest decision and that I should simply learn a basic trade and start working as soon as possible. His words slammed shut the last door leading to my dreams. I understood then that, in my parents' eyes, my worth had been pushed aside, perhaps it no longer deserved their belief at all. The favoritism didn't just take away my chance at higher education, it eroded my self-respect bit by bit. As painful as it was, those moments of being cast aside forced me to face a bitter truth. If I didn't stand up for myself, no one else would. And from that realization, a quiet but steady determination began to grow within me. After many sleepless nights, I realized that if I kept drowning in resentment and self-pity, I would remain trapped in my own failure. I couldn't change my father's decision, and I couldn't force my family to see me differently, but I could change my own destiny. So I chose to learn a trade, not out of surrender, but because I wanted to turn it into a stepping stone. The first days in the workshop were overwhelming. The environment was harsh, the work physically exhausting. The constant noise of machinery and the doubtful looks from others made me want to quit more than once. I found myself wondering, am I going down the wrong path? But every time I remembered the moment my father coldly took away my college fund, a fire reignited inside me. I refused to let myself collapse. If I gave up, I would forever remain a failure in their eyes. So I threw myself into learning with everything I had. I worked tirelessly during the day and studied at night through books and online courses. I wrote down every mistake, every small lesson. I trained until my fingers were calloused and my back ached, yet my determination never cooled. I understood that every drop of sweat today was laying the foundation for my tomorrow. Gradually, the fear faded. I began to believe that even without the traditional university path, I could still build a life I was proud of. Learning a trade was no longer a reluctant choice, it became the turning point that helped me rediscover my confidence and self-worth. I told myself that as long as I didn't stop, I would make it to the end. The road I chose was far from easy. The first few years were a relentless cycle of exhaustion and pressure. Every morning, I left home before sunrise and returned when the streets were already lit. My hands were constantly stained with grease, my clothes worn thin, my body drained after long hours of nonstop work. Some nights, I was so tired that I fell asleep the moment I lay down, without even having a proper meal or rest. The physical hardship was only part of the struggle. I also had to face the quiet contempt of others. Many people believed that learning a trade was a path for those who had failed, those not capable of getting into university. The whispers and constant comparisons to my brother felt like needles piercing my heart day after day. But instead of arguing, I chose silence and poured all my energy into my work. I believed results would be the strongest answer. Life back then was incredibly tight. My modest salary forced me to calculate every small expense. Some months, I survived on simple meals of instant noodles, boiled eggs, and vegetables, just to save money for study materials. While friends my age went out and enjoyed their youth, I sat quietly in my cramped rented room, studying late into the night and sharpening my skills. There were times when I was almost completely drained, questioning whether all this effort was worth it. But whenever the thought of giving up crept in, I reminded myself of my dream to change my destiny and my desire to prove my worth. That reminder pulled me back to my feet every single time. I understood that as long as I kept moving forward, no matter how slowly I was, still getting closer to the life I wanted. After nearly 3 years of relentless work and study, my efforts finally began to pay off. My skills improved significantly. I worked faster, with greater precision, and most importantly, I gradually built a solid reputation in the workshop. The people who once doubted me started trusting me with more important tasks. For the first time in my life, I experienced what it truly felt like to be recognized for my own abilities. The real turning point came when a major client happened to witness me handling a complex repair that even several experienced technicians had struggled with. Within a few hours, I identified the root cause and fixed the issue completely, saving them a substantial amount of money. Impressed by my dedication and skill, they offered me a long-term contract, an opportunity I had never even dared to imagine before. From that point on, more and more clients began coming to me. I started taking on private jobs after work, gradually building a steady customer base. My income increased noticeably, and I was no longer struggling to afford basic meals. With the money I saved, I boldly invested in more modern tools, enrolled in advanced training courses, and studied management and business on the side. Every decision was made carefully, because I understood this was a crucial period that would shape my future. Before long, I was able to open my own small workshop. Though modest at first, it was the result of years of sweat and sacrifice. Every morning, when I unlocked the door and saw the sign bearing my name, I felt a quiet sense of pride. I knew that from that moment on, my life had turned a new page, one defined by independence, confidence, and self-worth. Just 2 years after opening my workshop, my life had changed in ways I had never dared to imagine. My business became increasingly stable, and the number of customers kept growing through referrals and the reputation I had built. My income was no longer just enough to get by, it allowed me to save, invest, and expand. For the first time, I experienced true financial freedom. Meanwhile, my brother's university path did not unfold as smoothly as my parents had hoped. Academic pressure, student debt, and a few poor choices left him struggling to secure stable employment after graduation. The contrast was hard not to notice. I felt no triumph, no arrogance, only a quiet understanding that each person must ultimately take responsibility for their own choices. My success gradually made its way back to my family. My parents began hearing compliments from neighbors and acquaintances. They were surprised to learn that my income had even surpassed my brother's, the one who had once received all their trust and investment. The phone calls became more frequent, and their voices softer. I realized that the recognition I had longed for all those years had finally arrived, not through empty words, but through real, undeniable results. Looking back on my journey, I understand that my greatest success isn't measured by money, but by the fact that I overcame my insecurities, pain, and the weight of doubt to stand firmly on my own 2 feet. I no longer feel the need to prove myself to anyone else, because I have already proven my worth to myself. If you believe that hard work is always rewarded, comment 1 to encourage one another. As my success became more visible, my family's attitude continued to shift. The once rare phone calls grew regular. My father no longer spoke in a cold tone. Instead, he asked about my work and my health, even showing pride when mentioning me to others. My mother began sending thoughtful messages, reminding me to eat properly and not overwork myself. Those gestures warmed my heart, but they also carried a quiet bitterness. Because deep down, I knew that if I were still the failure I once was, they might not have remembered to care at all. One day, our whole family gathered together after years apart. That dinner felt completely different from the ones in the past. My father took the initiative to serve me food and asked about my plans to expand the workshop. My mother listened carefully to every story I shared. My brother was quieter than usual, no longer carrying the same confidence he once had. In his eyes, I saw exhaustion and a trace of insecurity. In that moment, I realized that the cycle of expectations and pressure had made both of us pay, each in our own way. My father admitted that he had underestimated me. He said he once believed I didn't have the perseverance or strength to pursue a long and demanding path. His confession came late, but it eased some of the old wounds inside me. I didn't argue or bring up the past. I simply listened, because I understood that this acknowledgement was the result of years of silent effort. Even so, deep down, there remained an emptiness that was hard to fill. The years of feeling overlooked had left marks that were not easily erased. I learned to accept this change calmly, without placing too much hope in it, and without holding on to resentment, because what matters most to me now is no longer my family's recognition, but the peace within my own heart. The change in my family's attitude made me realize something important. Karma isn't loud revenge, it's the quiet result of time and effort. I didn't need to argue, prove myself, or take satisfaction in anyone else's struggles. The fact that I stood firm, lived well, and succeeded was enough to make people reflect. One afternoon, my father unexpectedly visited my workshop. He silently watched me work, talk with my employees, check the accounts, and greet customers. In his eyes, I saw a mix of surprise, pride, and regret. When it was just the two of us, he quietly said, "I was wrong." Those 3 simple words carried years of unspoken remorse. I didn't respond right away, I just smiled. In that moment, I realized I no longer needed a perfect apology. My brother began to change as well. He started asking me about work experience, career building, and financial management. The rivalry was gone, replaced by a genuine desire to learn. I was willing to share, because I understood that everyone has their own journey, and no one deserves to be trapped forever by past mistakes. Karma arrived gently, yet profoundly. Not through someone else's downfall, but through my own growth. I learned to forgive, not to set them free, but to free myself from old burdens. The past once caused me deep pain, but it was also what shaped me into someone stronger. Now, when I look back on the road I've traveled, I no longer feel resentment, only gratitude, because without those painful moments, I might never have become the strong and independent person I am today. Reflecting on the entire journey, I realized that the most valuable thing I gained was not money or recognition, but profound lessons about life and self-worth. I once believed that university was the only gateway to success, but reality taught me that any path can lead to achievement, as long as you are persistent and willing to work hard. I learned that no one has the right to define your value except you. Disrespect, favoritism, or unfair decisions may wound you, but they cannot determine your future unless you allow them to. Only when you dare to stand up, face reality, and take action can you rewrite your life story the way you choose. I also came to understand that failure is not the end, it is often the beginning of growth. The years of exhausting labor, the rejections, and even the moments of despair shaped my resilience, discipline, and self-respect. And those qualities, more than anything else, are the true foundation of lasting success. More importantly, I learned how to forgive and let go. Holding on to resentment only weighs down the soul and slows your progress. When I chose to forgive, I didn't do it for anyone else, I did it for myself, so I could move forward with a lighter and calmer heart. In the end, I came to understand that everyone has their own rhythm in life. Comparison only leads to insecurity and confusion. Instead, focus on your own journey. Step by step, slow perhaps, but steady. Because what truly matters is not how fast you move, but whether you have the courage to keep going. Now, as I stand in my own workshop, listening to the familiar hum of machines and watching my team work diligently beside me, I find myself smiling. All the hardship, humiliation, and pain of the past seem to have faded into the background. I am no longer the boy who lost his chance at university, who was underestimated and forced into a trade out of resentment. I have become a grown man, independent, self-assured, and strong enough to take full responsibility for my own life. That journey taught me that no path is ever meaningless. Every choice, whether born from circumstance or pressure, can become a stepping stone if we choose to seize it and turn it into an opportunity. What truly matters is not where you start, but your persistence, your discipline, and your unwavering belief in yourself. I also learned that success is not measured solely by how much money you earn or how many assets you own. It is the ability to remain kind, compassionate, and at peace within your own heart. Only when I let go of resentment toward the past did I truly feel free. And in that freedom, I found a simple yet lasting happiness. If you are going through a difficult time feeling underestimated, overlooked, or lost, remember that my story is just one of many examples, proving that people can change their destiny with their own hands and determination. Don't let anyone define your limits. Believe in yourself. Take steady steps forward. One day, you will look back on your journey with quiet pride. Because in the end, the greatest victory is not being better than others, it is becoming a better version of yourself than you were yesterday. And that is the most complete form of success in life.